Hey folks, how's it going? Dr. Spin. Eclectic album reviews and general musical meanderings. Got another 4 albums for you guys. This is part of this big deluge of new music for myself. This is all music that's going to go on throughout this year and serve as the basis, the foundation for everything I'm looking at as we head towards the best albums of 2024. So important time, let's go ahead and get started. So the first one I got up today is Marnie Stern's The Comeback Kid. Marnie Stern made a name of herself in the late aughts with the release of several critically acclaimed kind of indie rock albums, sort of in a mathy vein. Certainly, there's some connections to the band Hella and Terra Melos that kind of show her roots in that style. In 2013, however, Stern pulled down this gig playing in the Late Night with Seth Meyers group, as part of the house band. And she settled into that gig and stayed there for a good 10 years, relying on a good, healthy paycheck and, raising a couple of kids in the process. And during this decade, she worked with the Seth Meyers band. She took some time off from her solo work, which is the impetus for having the name of this album being The Comeback Kid. It's her first album that she's released in, like I said, nearly a decade. The album is full of quirky, catchy, mathy tunes with a lot of hooks and a lot of charm. Now, Stern's vocals are really well suited for this kind of oddball style that she sings in, but it kind of takes a backseat to her guitar playing. And during her previous kind of run of solo albums, she kind of garnered a reputation for being a pretty outstanding and unique guitar player. And that's still on display here. Lots of really interesting, fiery guitar work that is shreddy, but not like your usual idea of kind of, the metal shred. Okay, next up I got Colin Stetson's When We Were What Wept for the Sea. In the age of sampling and digital audio workstations and AI-assisted composition, the saxophone doesn't really seem like a place where, more innovations would be happening. Now, if you want a saxophone to come in and do a saxophone solo, of course, that's what you do. Nothing plays a saxophone solo better than a saxophone. But what about really doing something in an instrument that hasn't been done before? This is where bass saxophonist Colin Stetson walks in the door. As a sought-after collaborator and sideman, he has filled that role of the guy that plays the awesome saxophone solo more than once. With Arcade Fire, with Tom Waits, with TV on the Radio, and Bon Iver, a wide variety of current artists who have called on his unique talents. But as a composer and a player, his particular technical innovations have really pushed the boundaries, I think, of what's possible on the saxophone. And When We Were What Wept for the Sea is a fantastic example of these innovations, the way that he uses them. There's a combination of unique vocalizations with his oral cavity and his embouchure, vocalizations that he amplifies with a microphone on his throat, circular breathing, so it sounds like he can play things forever without ever stopping, and then also putting contact microphones on the saxophone to use the mechanical nature of the saxophone as its own percussion instrument. He puts all these things together with just a little bit of touch of delay, no overdubs, no loops, and does these really amazing soundscapes. It would seem that Colin Stetson's style has a lot in common with Philip Glass' style of minimalism, and I think that's to a degree true, not unlike Seabuck Thorne's Turns, which is one of my 2017 album of the year. Stetson's take, however, is really washed over with the physicality of his playing, as well as the sense of loss, I think, that he has he's imbued in these performances. Okay, next up I got Nick Hakim's Cometa. Hakim's third album is a meditation on the euphoric feeling of love. Now, he meets this aesthetic in kind of a roundabout way, because where most musicians would go out and work diligently to create these very glossy, production quality, he's got kind of a lo-fi and almost ASMR approach to this album. Kind of like Maria BC's Spike Fields, there are many artifacts that show, the human hand in it. Lots of finger scratches and lots of very up-close vocal miking techniques that really give it an intimate feel. The feeling is kind of reminiscent of Sloss Malone's work, but without sort of the whiplash-inducing stylistic and dynamic changes that those albums have. But the whispered vocals often get lost in sort of this pillowy haze. And while that really adds to the aesthetic, it also kind of detracts from the memorability of the individual songs. Okay, finally I've got Mo Troper's Troper Plays Brion. Now, my interest in 90s power pop led me inexorably to John Brion. I first kind of recognized who he was when he played these guitar parts on Spilt Milk, and in my mind, he was like Jason Faulkner's replacement for a while. So I followed him as part of the Jellyfish family tree, which led me to Meaningless, which is a 2000 classic by John Brion, was self-released and is kind of a cult fan favorite to this day. And although John Brion went on in the early aughts to kind of be the background music for a lot of movies, did a lot of soundtracks, did a lot of production work for folks, he never really followed up Meaningless. As brilliant as this album is, it was the singular solo album that he ever made. And Mo Troper kind of shares my desire, I think, for a follow-up to this really super classic album, because he wanted to do a tribute to John Brion, but wanted to take a little bit of a different twist on it. He had acquired this set of demos that had been kind of circulating through LA songwriters, a bunch of John Brion's earlier unreleased demo recordings. So it was his idea to render these demos as full-fledged songs, using the sounds and the arrangement and the very unique and distinctive orchestrations that John Brion used on Meaningless as a template for how he would make these into a full album. And fans of Meaningless who've been waiting for a follow-up to this album really shouldn't look too much further than this, because, okay, it's not John Brion, it's not perfect, but really, if you sort of squint your eyes and kind of like do a magic eye puzzle on it, you can hear this pretty effectively as a decent follow-up to Meaningless. Back to back, all the songs are really, really great. They have all the harmonic complexity and quirkiness built into them of John Brion's work. But also Mo Troper is very reverent to John Brion and his particular idiosyncratic ways of arranging songs, and really fills them out in a super compelling way. And although it was his goal to release an album that was all unreleased John Brion songs, there's one exception here: the song "No One Can Hurt Me," which is released as part of the Grays, one of the Grays songs. He does kind of a cover version of that song here that's also equally brilliant. That really pays tribute to that one in a super authentic way. So he's rendering John Brion's more well-established works in a very authentic way, and then maybe taking other ones that maybe were less fleshed out and opening them up a little bit more to interpretation, but still staying within that style. And that's all I got for you guys this time around. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Follow me over on Spotify. Of course, I'm putting tracks up on a track list over there for my Best of 2024 list. And then if you want to be involved in this year's Viewer's Choice Best of 2020 list, please sign up to my Patreon below. I'll get you more information about that. And until you see you next time, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Words on the back